Today we've got a webinar for admin settings inside of ShareFile. We've got a lot of things to cover here, and we're going to play you a recorded video that me and Matt did here. All right, so let's get the demo started.
Okay, so my goal is to talk about an overall user management strategy, which will touch on authentication and single sign-on. I'll also cover just general user permissions and user security for the most part. I'll talk about high level the two different types of administrators on a ShareFile account. Essentially, you have like a data administrator, and then you have an account administrator. And then just some common things that I've seen with admins or speaking with admins about their user management. And as mentioned, Tepe will handle the account management overall. So basically, I'll cover user management. Tepe will handle the account management. So let's jump in. So in ShareFile, there's different ways of provisioning users so that you can have users for your user management. In ShareFile, we can connect to an Active Directory using the ShareFile User Management tool. And with the ShareFile User Management tool, you can apply policies to groups of users that are in Active Directory, and then we'll provision those users into ShareFile. So I can make different types of permission sets. So in this case, this is a full administrator that has access to every permission on the account. And I can make these different groups of users, and through user management tool, I can connect to an Active Directory group or a security group, and I can provision those users into ShareFile. And with that, I don't have to manage like two sets of user groups, right? If I have Active Directory already configured, I can just tie into that. If somebody changes a name, leaves the organization, those changes will automatically reflect on the ShareFile side. Now that works for our companies that have user management tool, are able to use the user management tool. What I mean by that is they have an on-premise Active Directory. But for some customers, they don't have an on-prem AD, or they don't have any AD at all, and they're using an identity provider to manage their user permissions and access. So very high level going on to the account side, so I don't want to steal too much of Pepe's thunder, but under login and security policy within the admin settings, we do have single sign-on. I don't have it configured on this account, but we can configure single sign-on so we can connect to an identity provider. And if that identity provider allows for user provisioning, then ShareFile will provision those users based on your identity provider's ability to do so. Those are kind of like, that's very high level, the different ways of automating user provisioning inside of ShareFile. The manual methods, and we can certainly go into these in a much deeper dive if that's something that people want to hear more about. But to do this manually, if you go to the people section, you have browse employees or browse client contracts or contacts, I'm sorry. And inside of browse employees, you can create users individually. Now you can do this in bulk, so you can add multiple users here. So if you have a set of users that you want to add at once, you can do so manually. We also have the ability to import using Excel. This is a very popular one for accounts when they're just starting out, right? You know that you're going to have X number of users inside of ShareFile, so we can use the bulk import method to mass create sets of users. And what's good about this is when you use the import method here, essentially all it does is it just adds a bunch of users here for you automatically, so you don't have to manually type these users in. But when you set the user access here, this will impact all the users on that specific import. So my recommendation when I'm talking to a new customer that is bringing their users into ShareFile is to separate your users into the types of permissions you want them to have. And this is kind of go into the next portion of the conversation, which is just what types of permissions should your users have. So these are the default permissions overall on a ShareFile account. And I'd say, depending on your organization, it could be right for you. I see this option here get turned off quite frequently, which is the ability to create root level shared folders. Typically, I mean, it depends on the size of the organization, but typically the customers I'm talking to, they want to have like an IT team or a set of users that are dedicated to managing the infrastructure on the account or managing the folder structure on the account. So if you uncheck this, then only people who have that permission can create those root level folders, so that when you go into your shared folders, it's not just a bunch of different projects and like it's an annoyance to have to sort through to find the right data. But like I said, on the policy piece, if you select everything, you're duplicating the account owner's permission. You're giving this user or these sets or these multiple users access to everything. So they would be able to manage people, meaning that they can add and remove employees or clients. They can manage the accounts. They can change branding. They can change billing. They can change storage information. So it's important to know that, like, if you give a user all these permissions, they're going to be able to do everything on the account. So it's good to tailor them to specifically what they need. So typically I'll see people separate their users based off of like the everyday user, right? So like just a standard Office user, they're going to be able to use their file box. We're going to let them send documents for e-signature. We want to let them manage the client users, so the contacts, but not necessarily our employee users. We'll leave that to the admin team, and they don't need any of these other things. And that would be like your default basic user. But then you can say, all right, I want my IT team, or I want the users that are managing the licenses for ShareFile. I'm going to give them access to manage all people on the account. So I want them to be able to manage and delete employee users, manage and delete the client contacts, and be able to delegate permissions to other users. And then this would be like my people administrator or my user administrator. And then you can have an account administrator for what Tepe is going to cover, which will be the account settings. So if I wanted to change single sign-on, if I wanted to change the retention policy, something like that, like the global account settings, then you can give them a different set of permissions. But overall, it's just good to be aware or be direct on what permissions you're giving users. In worst case scenario, you can always just come in here and add a new permission. So start selective and then expand it based off what the user needs. In same way with importing users in the employee section, you can also import users in the client contact section. It's the same overall presentation, right? You have multiple users you can add, and you have the Excel method. And again, this is good for when accounts are just starting out and you know you have a set of users that you want to add into ShareFile. You can use this to bulk import all of those users in one swoop, so that you get your ShareFile account started how you want it to be, and you don't have to spend time manually creating users. Just bulk import, and then you can start applying people to distribution groups or apply people to individual folders and tailor their access. And distribution groups is something that I just wanted to quickly touch on. So when you are doing user provisioning, automatic user provisioning with the user management tool or with some of these other identity providers, some of the identity providers will offer a way to connect the user to a distribution group. It's built in natively to the user management tool. But basically, if you have lots of users on the account, distribution groups is your best way by far to manage users' access to folders. So what I mean by that is, on any folder structure, if like IT media is a good example. If I have stuff that only the IT department needs to see, I mean, I guess this isn't a great example because this is just sample data, but hopefully you get the picture. But this is content that only the IT team needs to interact with. So I can go to the people section and I can add them to the folder, but I don't want to add them individually, right? I could have 5 people on my IT team, and if there's multiple IT type folders that they need access to, that's 5 people times X number of folders, and then times X number of groups, and it's just annoying overall. So adding the distribution group here, IT team, adding the distribution group here means they're already added, but it means that I don't have to manually add all 5 of those users. I can just add that one group, and then I can set the permissions for that entire group. So this way, you have your IT team that's a distribution group, and instead of having to manage individual user permissions on individual folder structures, you can just add the whole distribution group, and then that group is how you manage access. So if somebody leaves the IT team, or you have like your office staff, or whatever the groups of people you have, if somebody leaves one of those teams, then you can just go into the distribution group here, and then select the user, and then remove them from the group, and then that removes their access to all of those folders and files. So it's just a better way to bulk manage your account so that you don't have to go individually to all of those folders and remove access. And something else to touch on for folder access is this super user group. So ShareFile has 2 types of administrators, or at least that's how I put it, where you have a data administrator and an account administrator, as I mentioned, and the data administrator is referred to as a super user. So the super users are different than your users that are granted all permissions, right? So you have users that have all permissions. This would be like your account administrator, but then you have the super users, which is the data administrator, and the super users can be modified under admin settings, under security, within the edit super user group. And the super user group is just a group of users that are added to every file and folder on the account. So when you create a new folder, that super user group is showed, or is granted access to that folder no matter what. That's just how ShareFile functions. So if you have like auditors, or you have IT people that need to be able to manage all data on your ShareFile account, you add them to the super user group, and they can see all data on the account. Now, some data or some folder structures may be hidden from like the average shared folder view, but the super users are on every folder on the account. So if there's a folder somewhere, like if you're working with our support team, the ShareFile support team, and you're trying to find a file, or you're trying to find a folder, something like that, if you're in the super user group, you will have access to that folder when they find it. So it's just good to know that anyone in the super user group can see every file on the account, and the super user group membership should be managed closely, right? You don't want to have someone in here that shouldn't be able to see all content on the account. And typically, ShareFile is used to share files that are sensitive in nature. And if you have users in the super user group that should not be able to see that sensitive files that are being sent, then you need to remove them. Because again, the super user group is on every folder, and they will be able to see every file that gets created on the account. Now, some companies do choose to hide the super user group from the folder access list. And what this means is, when I was in that folder structure earlier, this IT media section, it shows that the super users have access, and you can click on them and see who's in the group. Now, if you want to hide that, or you just don't need your users to know who's in the super user group, then go into that section under security and just check this box, and it'll hide that membership access, or the super user group showing on the folder access list. So overall, that's basically what I wanted to cover for just understanding how your users work, how people are provisioning them. Again, if there is an audience for a deeper dive into single sign-on, or specifically user management in some way, just let us know, and we'll happily run another one of these webinars where we can talk deeply about these things. But lastly, I just wanted to cover the common issues that I've talked to admins about user management and what we run into. And by far, the most common thing that we run into is when administrators don't keep an eye out on their users inside of ShareFile, and they're constantly adding people, they're constantly adding clients, and they're never deleting their users. And this could lead to stale user access. So like people that shouldn't have access but continue to have access because we haven't culled their permissions, or just a bloat on your account that you don't need. So in closing, what I'd like to cover, which is a little bit on the account administration side, which is what Tepe will cover. Underneath reporting, you can create a report for users. And I would recommend setting this up to be a recurring report that you run once a month or once a week, depending on your organization. But this will show you all users that have logged in. So you run this, and my count is very small here, so there might not be too much information in here. But this will show you every user on your account and the last time they've logged in and who created them. So if you're doing like a user audit just to know who's on the account, I know that these are all my users that are on the account. I can filter this so I can have employees versus client, and then I can look at their last login date. So if they haven't logged in 90 days, I'm going to target these users for deletion. And then I just spend a little bit of time and I delete these users so that they no longer have access. Alternatively, you can disable the users, which I didn't cover specifically, but if you go into a user, that's me. You can select disable the user, and that'll remove their access into ShareFile. They would still consume a license, but you can remove their access, and then you can delete that user at a later time. So all in all, that's what I wanted to cover. The high points are user provisioning, just have a user provisioning strategy, and then maintain awareness of who's in your account with reporting. And all in all, you'll have a much more healthy account that doesn't have stagnant access or access to users that are no longer in the org. And I think that'll do it for me. Thanks, and I'll hand it over to Tepe.
I wanted to cover a lot of the admin overview things regarding account-wide settings. So first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to go into admin settings here on the left-hand side, and then show you the admin overview. So in the admin overview, what you're going to see is things like your ShareFile plan type, how much data you're consuming, your user licensing, and who the account owner is. And if you need to, you can also reassign the account owner here. Next thing I want to cover is reporting. Now, Matt mentioned this a little bit in his part, but just kind of wanted to go into it in depth here. So you have usage report, which is kind of your activity report. Your access report is going to be who has download rights, upload rights, delete rights, admin rights to all the folders on the ShareFile account. You should be able to generate that here. The access change report is going to be a report of who gave access to who on a particular folder, and it just kind of shows you the timestamps and such. And then the other one I wanted to share is the share report and the request report. So these are download and download links that are being generated on your ShareFile account, and who created those is such. Now you can, and Matt also mentioned the user report here as well too. But in most of these reports, you can also run them as recurring reports. So you can just hit yes or no here on the recurring. And then you can also set whether you want to set it as a Excel file or a CSV file. And you can also set some kind of like custom date range here as well too. Okay, another really good thing to do is make sure that your ShareFile account has the right branding on it as well. So things like, making sure that every section has your company name on there, your business name on there, uploading some kind of logo on here, and then updating the colors too. Now, if you wanted to go an extra step, you can also go into the advanced appearance options here and change things more customize things even further. So things like the login page and modifying the background colors here, or even putting some kind of background image on the login page. You also have the option to make some branding choices on the emails being sent out. And then at the bottom, we also have the options to add additional subdomains. So let's say you recently went through a merger and acquisition. You've got some people on company A, company B, and you want to just make sure that, those names are added to the ShareFile account. You can add up to 3 on your ShareFile account. Okay, next one we want to talk about is under the security tab. Matt covered a few of these items, but the ones I wanted to talk about is the security alert settings. So we have these 4 scenarios. So users logging in from a different country, users logging in from a different device, the failed login attempts, and then malicious files getting uploaded into ShareFile. We have the ability to notify admins, users about these kind of activities, and then you can also pick and choose whether they're going to be notified of it as well. And then lastly, we also have the option to add additional contacts. If you wanted to, you can type in like a distribution group or other users and make sure that they are being notified of these kind of alerts as well too. And then again, if a malicious file is uploaded into ShareFile, you can go into the quarantine files section here and check out what those files actually are. Next point is going to be the storage. So in here, we have a storage usage page. The storage usage page is only available on certain plan types, so you might not see it, but it's a great tool for viewing who has how much data on the ShareFile account. And then you also have the ability to notify them that they're getting close to their quota. In the storage zones page, this is where you can see the kind of storage you have available on your ShareFile account. So let's say if you're using on-prem storage and ShareFile cloud storage, then you can see those storage locations in here. If I click into my storage zone in here, there's a new feature also. Let's say you want to go to a full cloud solution. We have this zone migration bot that you can click here and then move that data off to some ShareFile storage solution that you want. Okay, now in the advanced preferences, we also have AI settings. So we have the ability to disable and enable certain AI features here. The ones that we do have are the document request list generator. So that allows you to generate a list of documents that you want. And that's going to live in our projects feature for premium accounts and higher. And you can ask the AI assistant to generate that list for you. The document assistant is going to be able to analyze documents or give you feedback on documents by just asking questions. And then lastly, we also have the secure share recommender, which will look through any kind of documents that are being uploaded into ShareFile, make sure there's no PII information being stored in it, and then give you recommendations on what kind of security settings you should use on there. In the email settings, the one I just want to talk about is just this SMTP server setting. So you just want to make sure that the emails going out of your ShareFile account look like not just some generic ShareFile email. You want to make sure that it's using a company email address, right? So you can set up the SMTP server settings here and make sure that the emails are going through your mail servers and coming from an email address that people will recognize. Okay, and file settings in here, you should see the options for download and upload links. Now, our recommendation is to disable the public settings that are available on the top here and make sure that any download links that are getting generated on your ShareFile account require some kind of login. We also have the default settings here on the bottom. You'll see that there's two different settings, one for just everything and then another one for just the Outlook tool. Email recipient is the one we recommend, and you just want to see if you need to, you can also lock that setting in and prevent users from changing it in Outlook. Another recommendation here from us is to make sure that you set some kind of expiration policy on these links. Just anything but never, right? You want to make sure that there's some kind of expiration policy on the links. Now, this is not for the files themselves. The files are not going to get deleted based on this setting. This is just for the download link itself. And then we also have another set of permissions for the upload links or the request settings. And for the request settings, you know, having the public option enabled isn't as big of a deal. But we still recommend that you put some kind of expiration policy here so you don't have links just floating around on your ShareFile account. And then retention policy here. Default retention policy. This is how long files stay inside of a folder and get deleted after some period of time. We recommend that you set some kind of policy here, mostly because I think like in the financial industries and such, what we see is that people will move their data off of ShareFile. And ShareFile is really intended as just kind of a temporary storage solution where you can securely get the data between clients and then move your data off of ShareFile to some kind of permanent storage solution. And versioning is going to be how many copies of a file will save. So let's say you're making edits to it and you're constantly uploading those edits to ShareFile. As long as the file name's the same, ShareFile will just make sure that you have multiple copies of the file saved in there. Watermarking is also really kind of cool feature where if you have confidential documents that you're sharing out to a group of users and you don't want it to be shared out to other people, you can put watermarking on the documents and you can do custom text in here like this is confidential, or you can do everything as well as like making sure that the email address or the name who downloaded the files is saved onto the document and such. And we also have the ability to co-edit through Microsoft Office. So if you have any kind of Word document or Excel document that you're working with multiple people and you want to work on it live with other people, then we leverage the Microsoft Office editing features there. And then last one I want to talk about is just the ShareFile tools here. You have a few items in here like the desktop apps like the Outlook plugin, and whether you want to hide the tools on your ShareFile account. And then you also have the ability to pre-configure the Outlook plugin if needed to as well. All right, I think that's it for me. Thank you, folks.